Hello everyone. The lockdown has been extended again, and this is taking a lot of patience from us. Being locked up and having a lot of our comforts, social interaction, going for a run, a lot of things we are used to are taken away without our consent. This is a lot to deal with. We are left with nothing but introspection. Some feelings that we haven't worked through yet in the past is coming up during this lockdown. And please don't think that I am better than you guys because I decided to make a video or because I am a self-development coach. The reason why I am a self-development coach is because I needed to go through all of this development myself. And when I introduce a meditation or a story or a constellation or NLP exercise to you guys, please know that I needed to work through that myself as well. Today I'll be reading you guys an authentic, ancient South American healing tribal tale by psychotherapist Clarissa Pencola Estes from Women Who Run with Wolves. This is a story about patience. However, it's also a story about dealing with your emotions. When I read the story, know that the man in the story is referring to your emotions. So the whole story is about having the patience to work through these emotions. Okay, story is coming. And I know we've got technology now, one thing we have left. So a lot of us are used to quite quick fixes and having all of the stimulation of a proper funded movie, so we don't have to use our imagination. However, storytelling has been used in ancient times in South America, in the Norse cultures, in the Viking wars, in the African culture. This has been used for people to feel safety and connectedness in groups. And I still believe there is this primal instinct of you that goes back to when you were safe as a child and you were just listening to your parents telling the story. And that happens when you listen to a story. I'm gonna start reading now. There once was a young woman who lived in a fragrant pine forest. Her husband was away fighting a war for many years. When finally he released from duty, he trudged home in a most foul mood. He refused to enter the house, for he had become so used to sleeping on stones. He kept to himself and stayed in the forest day and night. His young wife was so excited when she learned her husband was coming home at last. She cooked and shopped and cooked and made dishes and bowls of tasty white soybean curd, of 3 kinds of fish, and 3 kinds of seaweed and rice sprinkled with red pepper, and nice cold prawns, big and orange. Smiling shyly, she carried the food to the woods and knelt beside her war-weary husband and offered him the beautiful food she had prepared. But he sprang to his feet and kicked the trays over so that the bean curd spilled, the fish jumped into the air, the seaweed and rice spilled into the dirt, and the big orange prawns went rolling down the path. "Leave me alone," he roared, and turned his back on her. He became so enraged, she was frightened of him. Time after time this occurred until finally, in desperation, the young wife found a way to the cave of the healer who lived outside the village. "My husband had been so badly injured in the war," the wife said. "He rages continuously and eats nothing. He wishes to stay outside and he will not live with me as before. Can you please just give me a potion or something that will make him loving once again?" The healer assured her, "This I can do for you, but I need a special ingredient. Unfortunately, I'm all out of hair from the crescent moon bear. So you must climb the mountain, find that black bear, and bring me back a single hair from the crescent moon at his throat. Then I can give you what you need and life will be good again. Some women might have felt daunted by this task. Some women would have thought the whole entire effort to be impossible. But not she, for she was a woman who loved. I am so grateful that something can be done. And the next morning, she went out to the mountain. And she sang out, Arigato Zasho, which is a way of greeting the mountain and saying, thank you for letting me climb upon your body. She climbed into the foothills where there were boulders like big loaves of bread. She ascended up the plateau covered with forest. The trees had long draped boughs and leaves that looked like stars. Arigato Zasho, she sang out. This was a way of thanking the trees for lifting their hair so she could pass underneath. And so she found a way through the forest and began to climb again. It was harder now. The mountain had thorny flowers that seized the hem of her kimono, and rocks that scraped her tiny hands. Strange dark birds flew out at her in the dusk and frightened her. She knew they were Mambotok, spirits of the dead who had no relatives, and she sang a prayer to them. I will be your relative. I will lay you to rest. Still she climbed, for she was a woman who loved. She climbed till she saw snow on the mountain peak. Soon her feet went wet and cold, and still she climbed higher, for she was a woman who loved. A storm began, and the snow blew straight in her eyes and deep in her ears. Blinded, still she climbed higher, and when the snow stopped, the woman sang out, Arigato Zasho, to thank the winds for ceasing to blind her. She took shelter in a shallow cave and could barely put all of herself into it. Though she had a full pack of food, she didn't eat, but covered herself in leaves and slept. In the morning, the air was calm and little green plants even showed through the snow here and there. She thought, now for the crescent moonbeam. She searched all day, and near twilight found thick cords of scat and needed to look no further, for a gigantic black bear lumbered across the snowfall, leaving behind deep pad and claw marks. The crescent moon bear roared fiercely and entered the den. She reached into the bundle and placed the food she had bought in a bowl. She sat the bowl outside the den and ran back to her shelter to hide. The bear smelled the food and came lurching from the den, roaring so loudly it shook loose little stones. The bear circled around the food from the distance, sampled the wind many times, then ate the food up in one gulp. The great bear reared up, sniffed the air again, and then disappeared into the den. The next evening the woman did the same, setting out the food, but this time instead of returning to the shelter, she treaded only halfway. The bear smelled the food, heaved itself out of its den, roared to shake the stars from the skies, circled, tasted the air very cautiously, but finally gobbled up the food and crawled back to its den. This continued for many nights, until one dark blue night the woman felt brave enough to wait even closer to the bear's den. She put the food on the bowl outside the den and stood right by the opening. When the bear smelled the food and lumbered out, it saw not only the usual food, but also a pair of small human feet. The bear turned its head sideways and roared so loud it made the bones in the woman's body hum. The woman trembled, but stood her ground. The bear held itself onto its back legs, smacked its jaws, and roared so that the woman could see right up onto its red and brown roof of its mouth. But she didn't run away. The bear roared even more and put out its arms as though to seize her, its 10 claws hanging like 10 long knives over her scalp. The woman shook like a leaf in high wind, but stayed right where she was. "Oh, please, dear bear," she pleaded. "Please, dear bear. I came all this way because I need a cure for my husband." The bear brought its front paws to earth in a spray of snow and peered into the woman's frightened face. For a moment, the woman felt she could see entire mountain ranges, valleys, rivers, and villages reflected in the bear's old eyes. A deep peace settled over her, and the trembling ceased. "Please, dear bear, I've been feeding you all of these nights. Could you please give me one of your hairs from the crescent moon on your throat?" The bear paused. This little woman can be easy food. Yet suddenly he was filled with pity for her. "It is true," said the crescent moon bear. "You've been good to me. You may have one of my hairs, but take it quickly and then leave here and go back to your own." The bear raised its great snout so that the white crescent on its throat showed, and the woman could see the strong pulse of the bear's heart there. The woman put one hand on the bear's neck and with the other took hold of a single glossy white hair. Quickly she pulled it. The bear reared back and cried out as though wounded, and this pain then settled into annoyed huffs. "Thank you, crescent moon bear. Thank you so much." The woman bowed and bowed, but the bear growled and lumbered forward a step. It roared at the woman in words she couldn't understand, and yet words she had somehow known all her life. She turned and fled down the mountains as fast as she could. She ran under the trees with leaves shaped like stars, and all the way through she cried, "Arigato, Zasho," to thank the trees for lifting their boughs so she could pass. She stumbled over the boulders that looked like big loaves of bread, crying, "Arigato, Zasho," to thank the mountain for letting her climb upon its body. Though her clothes were ragged, her hair askew, her face soiled, she ran down the stone stairs that led to the village, down to the dirt road, and right through the town to the other side, and into the hovel where the healer sat tending the fire. Look, I have it! I found it! I claimed it, a single crescent moonbear hair," cried the young woman. "Ah, good," said the healer with a smile. She peered closely at the woman and took the pure white hair and held it out towards the light. She weighed the long hair in one old hand, measured it with one finger, and exclaimed, "Ah, yes, this is an authentic hair from the crescent moonbear." Then suddenly she turned and threw the hair into the fire, where it popped and cracked and was consumed in a big orange flame. "No!" cried the young wife. "What have you done?" "Be calm, it's good. It's all well," said the healer. "Now remember each step you took to climb that mountain. Remember each step you took to capture the trust of that moon bear. Remember what you saw, what you heard, and what you felt." "Yes," said the woman. "I remember it all very clearly." The old healer smiled at her gently and said, "Please now, my daughter, go home with your new understanding and proceed similarly with your husband." The old healer smiled at her gently and said, "Please now, my daughter, go home with your new understandings and proceed similarly with your husband." So, yes, the husband is a metaphor for your emotions. And that is the way we should be handling our emotions when they come to us. We should notice their presence and just sit it through. Just experience it. Emotions stay something like 3 minutes and then it's over. Sometimes facing these emotions can be more liberating and actually more pleasant in a meditative way than having it in your subconscious, having it bother you. Have a great day.